She argued with a man in the coffee line, not knowing he was her new millionaire boss. Monday morning, cold and damp in New York, cars zipped past on 7th Avenue, trailing the signature early autumn fog. Emma Blake hurried toward the office building, her heavy coat catching the breeze. She was late. Another 8 a.m. meeting with the operations team, something she had never found necessary at the start of the week. She stepped into the tiny cafe at the building's lobby, the usual chaos of office workers fighting for their daily caffeine fix. The line was long, but Emma was used to waiting. She slipped in her earbuds, scanning a quick email as she slowly moved forward. Then out of nowhere, a sharply dressed man stepped in front of her. Gray suit, shine shoes, hair slicked back like a cover model. He didn't apologize, didn't look her way, just barked, "Double shot espresso." Emma took off her earbuds. "Excuse me, what are you doing?" The man turned, eyebrows slightly raised. "Ordering coffee, like everyone else." "But I'm standing here, there's a line." "Oh," he shrugged. "Didn't see anyone stopping me." She blinked, stunned by the sheer audacity. "You can't just cut in like that." "It's not the end of the world," he said coolly. "You're getting coffee, not fighting for survival." His voice was calm, detached, borderline arrogant. Emma inhaled sharply, trying to stay composed. "Some people still believe manners aren't optional." He smirked. "Then I owe you an apology, if that makes your morning easier." She didn't reply, just turned, pulled out her phone, and paid. Somehow she wasn't in the mood for coffee anymore. As she walked out, she still heard the barista's voice. "Next guest?" The man's voice echoed again. "I believe that's me." Emma clenched her jaw, thoughts swirling. Arrogant, rude, unbelievable. What she didn't know was that in just a few hours, this man would turn her entire world upside down. The company-wide staff meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m., held in the 20th floor conference room, reserved for major announcements. Emma entered, still carrying the irritation from her morning encounter. She took a seat in the second row, pulled out her tablet, and glanced around at colleagues whispering about the new CEO debuting today. She sighed. Senior leadership had never interested her much. Distant figures who only existed in emails and memo boards. But today felt different. There was an unusual tension in the air. The doors swung open. A tall man walked in, sharp in a navy suit. The murmurs stopped instantly. Emma looked up and froze. It was him, the man from the cafe, the line cutter, the arrogant jerk she had argued with just hours earlier. Her heart clenched. No way. How could he be here, in this room and as the new CEO? The MC began. "Good morning, everyone. Today we're honored to welcome our new CEO, Mr. Nathan Carter." Applause filled the room. Emma couldn't move. She stared at the man now stepping up to the podium, wearing a confident smile, eyes scanning the audience. Then those eyes locked on hers. Nathan recognized her, a subtle raise of the brow, a flicker of amusement. He knew, and he was savoring this cruel twist. "Before I begin," Nathan said smoothly, "I'd like to hear from someone who contributes to this company's success on the ground level." His gaze didn't waver. "You, second row, black coat. Would you mind sharing your thoughts on the company culture?" Emma felt paralyzed. All eyes turned to her. Slowly she stood, feeling like she'd just been pulled into a very public joke, but she didn't flinch. "Certainly," Emma said, voice steady, stronger than she expected. "Here, we value respect. Every voice matters, whether you're leading from the top or just starting out." Nathan pressed his lips together, half smiling. He understood, and she knew. The game had just begun. 3 days after the CEO's introductory meeting, Emma received an email with a subject line that made her heart race. "Project lead proposal, urgent response needed." She opened it. The project was titled Company-Wide Process Restructuring, a high-level initiative she'd only heard whispers about in upper management circles. And now she was being invited to lead it. No one other than Nathan Carter had made the recommendation. His signature at the bottom of the email confirmed it. Emma sat still for a few moments. Part of her wanted to decline immediately. After the cafe incident, in that awkward moment in the meeting, she didn't believe he had chosen her without some hidden motive. But the other part, the louder part, craved a chance to prove herself, to show her worth on her own terms. She clicked accept proposal. Working directly with the CEO on day one was anything but comfortable. The meeting took place on the 21st floor, a space Nathan reserved for special projects. Emma arrived 10 minutes early, documents prepared and sorted. When Nathan entered, he didn't greet her, just gave a curt nod. "What do you think is the biggest flaw in our current system?" he asked without pleasantries. Emma replied, "Lack of consistency in decision-making. Too many approval layers slow everything down." Nathan nodded. "You have a fix in mind?" "Streamline the process. Delegate authority to execution teams within each department, supported by weekly KPI dashboards." He paused, then jotted something in his notebook. "Sounds more reasonable than I expected." She wasn't sure if that was a compliment or a jab, but she kept going. Over the following weeks, they worked side by side nearly every day. Their dynamic was tense at first. Both were direct, opinionated, and unafraid to challenge each other. Nathan was sharp, cold, always probing for flaws. Emma refused to be overshadowed. She answered with solid reasoning and unwavering calm. There were fleeting moments of unexpected softness, like when Nathan once set a cup of coffee in front of her without a word. But no one ever mentioned the Monday morning incident. It was silently agreed. That moment didn't exist in their professional reality. Still, Emma couldn't deny something was changing. She began to look forward to their meetings. The way Nathan furrowed his brows while reading a report. The way his fingers tapped lightly when he was deep in thought. The quick glances he threw her way when she said something that caught him off guard. She kept telling herself, "This is just work." But her heart, it didn't seem to listen. It was a rainy Thursday evening. The entire city of New York glowed with streaks of headlights reflected on wet pavement. Emma remained in the office, fine-tuning the final version of the project proposal for tomorrow morning's executive meeting. Nathan hadn't left either. The conference room on the 21st floor echoed with his soft, rhythmic table tapping, a habit she'd come to recognize as his thinking mode. She glanced across the long table, rolled up sleeves, loosened tie, eyes fixed intently on the screen. "Not planning to head out?" Emma asked gently. Nathan looked up. "Waiting for the rain to ease." She nodded. "Me too. Honestly, I think I'd get swept away if I left now." He chuckled, a soft, genuine laugh. For the first time in weeks, it sounded unguarded. Something between them shifted. "Do you always stay this late?" he asked. "Only when there's a good reason," she replied without looking up. "You?" Nathan leaned back in his chair. "I used to think work was a place to shut off emotions, but lately, I'm not so sure." The room fell quiet for a beat. Emma felt her heartbeat slow, one heavy, steady pulse at a time. "Are you talking about work or something else?" she asked, barely above a whisper. He didn't answer immediately. His eyes met hers, softer now, but deeper than ever. "I'm not great at saying things out loud, but I think you know what I mean." Emma's fingers tightened slightly around her pen. Every rule, every line between professional and personal, suddenly blurred. She rose from her chair and walked to the glass wall, gazing down at the rain-soaked city. Nathan joined her, silent. They stood side by side, not touching. Yet somehow the space between them disappeared. "I used to hate that Monday," Emma whispered, "but now, I'm not so sure anymore." Nathan tilted his head toward her. "I've never regretted it." The rain continued to fall, but in that room something new had quietly begun to grow. Since that rainy evening, something had shifted between Emma and Nathan. Neither spoke of it, neither named it, but the way they looked at each other in meetings was no longer the same. There was understanding, something unspoken waiting to be acknowledged. They kept it professional. Words remained polite, formal. But in every nod, every lingering glance, emotions quietly grew beneath the surface like a rising tide. And just when everything seemed to be aligning, the past returned. In an internal company email, Nathan announced that Vanessa Brooks, a senior consultant who had worked with him years ago, would be joining as an advisor for the second phase of the project. Emma read the message, unsure of what exactly stirred inside her. But one thing was clear: the quiet tide between them was about to be disrupted. Vanessa Brooks entered the conference room as if she'd never left the world she once ruled. A cream-colored blazer hugged her slim frame. Dark brown hair fell in elegant waves, and every step exuded poise, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. Emma didn't need an introduction. She had heard of Vanessa. Not much, but enough to know this woman wasn't just another former colleague of Nathan's. Every whisper led to the same place, a relationship that blurred the line between professional and personal. From the moment their eyes met, Vanessa's gaze was openly critical, and it didn't take long for her to strike. Subtly, indirectly, but with deadly precision. "Oh, you're leading the project," Vanessa said during a small planning meeting, her voice light as air. "I would have thought Nathan would choose someone with more seasoned experience. But then again, he's always had his own standards." A few glances flickered across the table. Emma smiled, didn't respond, but she knew Vanessa wasn't just here to consult. Within 2 weeks, the air in the office began to shift. Familiar nods from colleagues turned lukewarm. A few meetings where Emma had previously been included. Her name was suddenly absent from the attendee list. Whispers trailed behind her like shadows. Some even began calling her the chosen one. She didn't need confirmation. Vanessa hadn't said anything outright, but she didn't need to. She let others draw the worst conclusions. Her rumors were seeds, scattered quietly, subtly, growing doubt like weeds. Nathan was busier than ever. Emma hadn't had a chance to speak with him privately, and she wasn't sure if she even should. A part of her wanted to say something, but another part, the part that remembered him smiling softly in the rain, was afraid that speaking up might break whatever fragile trust had formed between them. One Friday afternoon, while Emma was organizing documents, Lily, her closest friend and colleague, approached with a printed page in hand. "You need to see this," Lily said, eyes serious. It was a printout of an anonymous chat, circulated internally, claiming Emma had only advanced because of a special personal relationship with the CEO. She stared at the words, feeling a sharp sting inside. She knew the truth, but somehow the lies still cut deep. Emma gripped the paper tightly, inhaled slowly. If this was the game Vanessa was playing, then Emma was ready. Not with rumors, but with the truth. The weekend passed in a blur of frustration and silence. Emma didn't go to the office, but her mind never really left it. Every time her phone buzzed with a new email, her heart jumped, waiting for something, a clarification, a question, a message from Nathan. But nothing came. By Monday, she returned with a colder expression than usual. Vanessa was still there, still smiling, still polite. Emma didn't bother pretending anymore. She worked, she avoided the gossip, and she stayed silent, like stone, until she received a call from the internal legal team. "We need you to confirm some details regarding the project timeline," the voice said. "There's been an anonymous complaint filed." Emma froze. Her chest suddenly felt heavy. Someone, and she didn't need to guess who, was trying to turn rumor into reality. And the worst part? Nathan seemed to be starting to believe it. Monday, a morning that seemed normal, until Emma was called up to the internal compliance office. They didn't sugarcoat it. An anonymous complaint had been filed, accusing her of manipulating data and reports to favor her team and being unfairly favored by the CEO in the project's budget decisions. Emma sat upright, listening carefully, forcing herself to stay composed. "We'll need all document revision histories, related emails, and any supporting evidence for your professional decisions," the lead investigator said. She nodded. "I'll cooperate fully. I have nothing to hide." But deep inside, her heart began to tremble. That same afternoon, Nathan requested a private meeting. His office door closed behind her, shutting out the world. Emma stepped inside, 1,000 questions swirling in her mind, and one fragile hope that he would defend her. Nathan didn't look up right away. He simply slid a printed folder across the table. "This is the complaint," he said quietly. "I have to take it seriously." Emma scanned the pages, enough to know someone had tracked her every move, twisted details, and crafted a story that painted her as dishonest. The worst part? Nathan had read it, and he believed at least some of it. "You think I did this?" she asked when softly but clearly. Nathan finally looked up, eyes conflicted. I don't know what to think, Emma. I once trusted someone completely, and they betrayed me in the worst way. And now you're letting that fear poison your trust in me? I don't want to, but when you had direct authority and the numbers were changed, I can't ignore it. Emma said nothing. Her silence carried the weight of deep hurt. I thought you knew me. I want to, but right now I'm the CEO. I have to handle this by the book. That sentence, it was the final cut. Emma nodded slowly. Then I'll clear this up, not to save my job, but to protect my name. She turned, walking out of the office without another word. The door clicked shut behind her. Quietly, but the sound rang out like a goodbye left unsaid. Emma walked out of Nathan's office, the quiet clicks of her heels echoing down the long hallway. Every step sounded like a pulse of disappointment. She didn't cry. She wouldn't allow herself to. But deep inside, something felt torn apart. Nathan hadn't yelled. He hadn't accused her harshly. But his silence, the hesitation in his eyes, that hurt more than any spoken word. He didn't believe her, or at least he had allowed himself to doubt her. And for Emma, that was the hardest thing to forgive. That evening, she sat alone in her small apartment. The printed complaint lay on the table. Under the warm light, the black and white text seemed to scream. She turned each page, reading the distorted context, the data pulled out of place. And slowly, a new emotion rose: determination. If she let others rewrite her story, she'd forever be labeled the favored woman. No, she wouldn't accept that. 3 days later, on what seemed like a quiet morning, Lily walked into Emma's office with a look more serious than ever. You need to see this. In her hand was a folder and a short audio clip. No preamble, no hesitation. She simply pressed play. Let them believe Emma's using her relationship. That's all it takes to get her out of the way. The voice was cold, clear, unmistakable. Vanessa. Lily met Emma's gaze and nodded. I found this buried in a private team call, Vanessa recorded. She thought she deleted it from the system, but I recovered it. Emma held the folder, her hands trembling. Not from anger, but relief. At last, the truth had found its voice. That same day, an emergency meeting was called. Vanessa was asked to leave the building immediately after being confronted. No excuses, no tears. Hours later, Nathan entered Emma's office. He carried no reports, no corporate posture, only honesty in his eyes. I was wrong, he said, barely above a whisper. I let the past cloud what was right in front of me. Emma said nothing at first. Her heart wanted to forgive, but the wound was still raw. You doubted me when I needed you to believe in me the most. Nathan nodded slowly. And that's what's kept me awake for 3 straight nights. He took a step closer, his eyes locked on hers. Emma, I don't just believe you now. I don't want to hide anymore. I tried to maintain boundaries where between work, between duty, but feelings, they don't wait for the perfect moment. She looked at him, eyes stinging. And now? Now I only know one thing. I don't want to lose you, for any reason. For the first time in days, Emma smiled. Just a little, but it lit up the whole room. Then let's start over, but this time, with the truth. Since the day Nathan apologized, no more words were needed between him and Emma to define what they felt. They didn't rush into anything. There were still meetings, reports, high-pressure deadlines, but their eyes had changed. Sometimes it was a soft smile in the elevator, a brief touch when signing documents, a glance held just long enough to steal a heartbeat. Emma didn't ask about the future. Nathan made no grand promises, but everything between them now felt more real than ever. No more doubt, no more distance. And then one day, as the final phase of their project wrapped up, Nathan sent her a simple message. 7 p.m., rooftop, there's something I want to tell you. Emma stared at the words, a quiet smile spreading across her face. Her heart knew. This time, it was going to be something unforgettable. Emma arrived at the hotel at 6:58 p.m. Her heart beat softly but quickly, like it knew something was about to change. The receptionist smiled and quietly led her to the top floor. When the elevator doors opened, Emma froze. The rooftop, and normally just an open space, had been transformed into a garden of light. Hundreds of string lights floated overhead, swaying in the night breeze. White flowers lined the path. A small table stood in the center, holding 2 glasses of wine and a single flickering candle. Nathan stood a few steps away, his back to her. When he heard her footsteps, he turned, and under the warm golden glow, his eyes held a softness she'd never seen before. "I used to think," Nathan began as she approached, "that work was everything, that emotions only complicated things. But then you came along, and everything I thought I knew started to unravel." Emma smiled, her eyes glistening. "I didn't come to change you," she whispered. "No," he nodded. "You came to make me want to change myself." Nathan stepped forward, then knelt down. From his coat pocket, he pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a simple, elegant ring, catching the light just enough to sparkle. "Emma Blake," he said, voice soft but sure, "you didn't just make me believe in truth again. You made me believe in love again. I can't promise it'll always be easy, but I promise to hold your hand, even when it gets hard. Will you marry me?" Emma brought a hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. For a moment she couldn't speak. Only silent tears, gentle and honest, rolled down her cheeks. Then she nodded. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling but clear. "Yes, I will." Nathan stood, slid the ring onto her finger, and wrapped her in his arms beneath the canopy of lights. That night, high above the city, beneath the sky and wrapped in promises, 2 people found each other. No more doubt, no more distance, only love, honest and whole. Since the rooftop proposal, things between Nathan and Emma entered a new chapter. Not flashy, but warm and quietly beautiful. They agreed to keep their engagement private at work, at least until the project wrapped. "I just want this to be ours for a while," Nathan had said, squeezing her hand. Emma nodded. She thought, as long as they knew that was enough. But then, Ethan Grant arrived. He entered the office like a summer breeze, confident, well-dressed, and very aware of his own charm. Ethan was a new consultant brought in by Rachel, an old friend of Emma's, to help with the final project phase. At their first meeting, he shook Emma's hand a little too long, eyes fixed on her. "Heard a lot about you," Ethan smiled, half teasing. "Didn't expect you to be both brilliant and stunning." Emma gave a polite smile. She didn't read too much into it, but Ethan clearly had other plans. Within the first week, he sent flowers to Emma's office. White tulips with a note. "A little inspiration for the woman who intrigued me most today." Lily burst out laughing when she saw them. Emma just shook her head. Definitely the wrong person. But Ethan hadn't gotten it wrong. The next day he asked her to dinner. Not work, just 2 lovers of art and fine wine. He winked. Emma declined politely, but Nathan said nothing when he saw the bouquet. But the stillness in his face, the flicker in his eyes, that was louder than words. On Friday afternoon during a full team meeting, Ethan joked aloud, "Seems like I'll need to book Emma through her assistant. She's always busy, especially in the evenings." The room chuckled. Emma blushed, about to reply. But then Nathan spoke, calm, but unmistakably firm. "Emma doesn't need an assistant to decline invitations she's not interested in. And as her fiancé, I believe I can speak on her behalf." The room went dead silent. Ethan froze. Rachel blinked. Emma turned to Nathan. And in that moment, she knew. For the first time, he chose to stand beside her, publicly, unapologetically. After everything they had endured, the silences, the doubts, the slow rebuilding of trust, Emma and Nathan arrived at something they once thought impossible, a love brave enough to promise forever. They didn't choose a grand wedding with hundreds of guests and dazzling lights. Instead, they chose a quiet, late autumn afternoon at a small villa nestled in the suburbs of New York, where the breeze was gentle, the scent of lavender lingered, and only those who truly mattered were present. Emma walked into the garden wearing a pure white dress, no extravagant lace, no long trains sweeping the grass. Just something simple, soft, and exactly her. In her hands was a bouquet of white tulips, once a gesture from Ethan, now carrying a completely different meaning. Nathan stood at the end of the aisle in a gray suit, his eyes holding every moment. When their eyes met, the world seemed to pause just for a beat. There was no music, no grand announcements. When it was time for vows, their voices, trembling but honest, became the melody that moved everyone to tears. Emma held Nathan's hands, her gaze shimmering as she said, "I won't promise that life will always be easy, or that we'll never disagree, but I promise that in every storm I'll stand with you. Not behind, not ahead, but right beside you. I choose you not just today, but every day after this, even on the days we feel far from love. And I promise to love you, not just with my heart, but with my choices and my consistency every single day." Nathan looked at her, his eyes glossy but lit with something she thought she'd never see again. He said, "I once thought I couldn't love again. I built walls around myself I didn't think anyone could break. But then you came, with your silence when I needed quiet, with your strength when I felt weak, and with a patience that asked for nothing in return. You made me believe, not just in you, but in myself. I promise never to let go, even when things get hard. I promise to walk with you, not ahead, not behind, but beside you." And when the officiant gently said, "Nathan, you may kiss your bride," Nathan didn't hesitate. He leaned in, one hand resting softly on Emma's waist, and under a golden sunset, with autumn winds rustling through glowing string lights, they shared their first kiss as husband and wife, a kiss no longer carrying pain or hesitation, but one of quiet certainty, between two people who chose each other, not because everything was perfect, but because they were willing to walk together through all that wasn't. Time had passed not with noise or drama, but with the quiet rhythm of two people choosing each other, day after day. No more tense meetings, no more curious glances at the office. Just them, and a life built gently, one choice at a time. That morning, sunlight slipped through the curtains, warming the wooden floor. Emma woke up first. Wrapped in a soft sweater, hair still messy from sleep, she tiptoed into the kitchen. The smell of coffee filled the space as she turned on the grinder. A ritual now, one that marked the peace of their shared mornings. Nathan appeared a few minutes later, sleepy-eyed and warm. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his head on her shoulder, like he wished the moment would never end. "I think," Emma said as she poured the coffee, teasing, "the only thing I regret is not yelling at you louder that day in the cafe." Nathan chuckled, pulling her closer. "And I regret not cutting in line sooner." They both laughed, the sound echoing softly through the little kitchen, like a soundtrack of their simple happiness. Life wasn't perfect now. There were still unwashed dishes sometimes, rainy days that ruined plans, late-night work calls that pulled one of them away. But in the midst of it all, they learned to pause, to look at each other, and to remember the most important things were, in fact, very small. Like picking out a tablecloth together, like deciding who adds the sugar each morning, like resting a hand on each other's shoulder when the day felt too heavy. Emma sat at the table and handed Nathan his cup. Their eyes met for a long moment. Love wasn't something they had to prove anymore. It wasn't something to defend. It was simply something they lived in, every single day. "Do you remember the first time we met?" she asked, half playful. Nathan squinted. An angry woman, coffee spilled, death glare, and a man who looked successful but was secretly spiraling because he'd just been fired, Emma added with a grin. "Yeah," Nathan whispered, "but somehow, the luckiest man alive. Because on the worst day of my life, I met the best thing that ever happened to me." Emma said nothing for a while, then leaned gently into his shoulder, eyes wandering to the balcony where sunlight poured over the little potted plants. Some love stories start with flowers, glances, smiles. Theirs began with a fight and a spilled cup of coffee. And yet, after everything, it still led to this. A quiet morning, 2 warm cups of coffee, and a soft promise whispered between them. "Today, let's begin again. Together." They began with a random argument, walked through misunderstandings, challenges, and moments they almost gave up. But they chose to stay, not because it was perfect, but because they believed in each other. And so every day together, no matter how ordinary, became something quietly miraculous. something they never stopped holding close to their hearts.